Welcome to Unbelievable Stories. Today's story is full of shocking twists and real drama. Subscribe and like to stay updated. Let's dive in.
My name is Danny Whitman. I am a struggling private eye. I reside on a dilapidated boat at Lakeside Marina with my 5 Chihuahua attack dogs, Chip, Tiny, Rocky, Ziggy, and Bolt. My family consists of a father and 2 moms. Things are difficult. I'm half Irish, half Italian. I've only loved one lady, Alexandra. She moves in and out of my life, hurting my heart. She resembles a movie star, but I think she's more beautiful. It's not just love, it's an addiction. It began in 7th school, and I've never been able to get over her, despite her manic-depressive mood swings. She admits to being crazy as a loon, and since I like her, I must be as insane. On a Tuesday, she loved me wholeheartedly. By Friday, she had forgotten about me and gone to Bali with a guru. She was a victim to her ever-changing emotions and hormones, and sadly, my passionate Italian side was a slave to her love. My Irish side told me I was a fool for allowing her in and out of my life. My 2 halves frequently clashed over my feelings for Alexandra. I was a moth and she was a million-watt searchlight, beguiling and drawing me into my demise. For me, a night of closeness with Alexandra was worth a year of heartache. She had been the ideal girlfriend until her multimillionaire grandpa started supporting and encouraging her mad lifestyle. When I was very little, my father and his closest friend, Simon Hawthorne, a private investigator, told me detective stories instead of fairy tales at supper. I fell in love with their tales. My father wanted me to be an accountant, but my passion was watching Magnum PI reruns. That's when I decided to become a private investigator, like Uncle Mike. I don't look like Thomas Magnum. In fact, I am so simple and ordinary looking that my appearance is ideal for discreetly following individuals. At the request of my 2 parents, I went to college and received a degree in accounting. After college, I approached Uncle Mike about a job. To become a licensed PI in Boston, you must apprentice with an existing PI license for 19 months, so I called Simon Hawthorne. When Mike was sober, he was the greatest private investigator in town. When he was drunk, as he was most of the time, he was still among the best. While working as an accountant by day, I apprenticed with Mike for 19 months before receiving my private investigator license and leaving my accounting job. I called everyone I knew, including my relatives, to inform them that I had become a private investigator. So far, my primary responsibility had been to collect up $28,000 in cash from a bank and bring it to a firm for payroll each week. Because of the dangers of the work, I had a concealed carry permit, something most private eyes did not. My parents did not receive the news as well as I had planned. "Robbie, this is all your fault," my mother shouted at my father. What kind of father raises a child on detective stories at bedtime? She asked. He didn't like fairy tales, my father said. I obtained my old school's classmate list and sent out notices to my former classmates at Hawthorne Academy, a very costly and very liberal elite school in Manhattan. I sent notices to everyone except my former lover Alexandra Cole. If she ever contacted me, I'd most likely make a fool of myself over her again. She oversaw her grandfather's multimillion-dollar art collection and gallery. I doubted she ever thought of me until we were together in bed, which occurred just a few times a year, but I never quite got over her. I recall that day at the marina when we were 14 and I taught her how to sail that small boat. We capsized and were unable to stop giggling. I'll never forget her grin and laugh that day. It was better not to think about her. She was on her 2nd or 3rd marriage, to either a tech magnate or a big league player. She only used me for love and intimacy when she was between very affluent husbands. I was a scholarship student at Oak Ridge since one of my 2 mothers taught math there. Every other child's parents were either corporate executives or hedge fund billionaires. I was still the only one in my graduating class who did not drive a BMW, Mercedes, or Porsche to school. I rode my bike to school. Naturally, they all got hybrid automobiles so they could claim to be environmentally conscious while flying to the Hamptons and St. Bart's in their private planes. We'd run into each other sometimes, get a cup of coffee, and they'd tell me about their most recent stay in treatment. My intellectual recollection came to an end when my cell phone rang. "Hello, dear. This is Alexandra, the love of your life and your favorite bipolar enamorada. How are you? Are you phoning to shatter my heart again, if you're lucky?" "The theme is the Indigo Girls," Alexandra said. Alexandra suggested a theme, which meant we had to include the title of one of their songs into everything we said. "I guess I'm not ready to make nice," I said. That was fairly excellent right from the beginning. I suppose we're 2 of a kind. She was my first love a long time ago, in a galaxy far away known as junior high. I never got over her, and she exploited that to her advantage. Alexandra was my first true girlfriend. She crushed my heart throughout high school. If I had been affluent, we could have probably lived happily ever after for a month or two. I assumed that my love life would alter after high school. I was mistaken. Nothing changed except that I had to work hard to pay off my massive college debts. I'd never be one of those wealthy, dim-witted popular kids. One of the many characteristics I wanted I could alter was my inability to quit loving someone, even if she was the meanest girl on the planet, laughing as she destroyed my heart years ago and again this year. However, it was still early in the year. "Have you landed a rich hubby yet?" I asked. "Still searching. They must be difficult to locate." "How many millionaires can there be?" "There are 3,100 billionaires worldwide," she said. 49 in Boston City. "I'm certain you'll get one." "The competition for them is tough," Alexandra conceded. "There's your problem," I said. "I am becoming anxious. I keep hitting out. Maybe I'm too old." "How is that possible since you always RSVP?" she asked. "What does that mean?" Alexandra inquired. "It means that you're really seductive, very pretty, I told you." "That was extremely kind of you to say." "You're not wealthy yet, are you?" "I'm still impoverished but honest." "Why are you saying it as if it's a good thing?" "It's just my luck that you're here right away." "So you're now playing the acronym game." "What exactly does ASAP mean?" I asked. Alexandra laughed. "It translates to always sweet, always impoverished. I suppose if you were richer, I could love you more." "That's okay, I believe in love." "How is your grandpa coping with his shattered heart and wallet? Is he prepared to run you in?" "No more indigo girls." "My granddad was a survivor. He purchased a new Van Hoff, a new Gulfstream jet, and a new female to travel with him. He's only trying to pacify himself after Victoria. Do you remember Carla, the blonde cheerleader a year behind us in high school who now works as a television newscaster? Well, she was dear old granddad's new Christmas present to himself, wrapped up in a Santa Claus hat and seasonally appropriate red stockings and a red belt. I was already aware of Carla. Alexandra's grandpa had hired me to investigate her. We had approximately 10 common high school classmates, so it was simple. Of course, I couldn't tell Alexandra. "But you already know about Carla. You checked her out for my grandpa along with everyone we went to high school with. You were not very discreet, but don't worry, I didn't tell him. If he keeps her around for much longer, I may need you to dig up some dirt on her before she works her way into his will. Let him throw her a few million. There will be enough for you. You're an accountant, for goodness sakes, how can you be so naive about money? There is never enough. Didn't I teach you something? Maybe you'd understand if you were wealthy." I shook my head. "You were so much sweeter before you got rich." Alexandra's grandpa, Harold Bennett, was a real estate billionaire with 3 pricey hobbies: art, young ladies, and his granddaughter, Alexandra. He had spent around $500 million on the artwork at his gallery. I had no idea how much his ladies cost, but when his daughter died, he spent millions on his lone heir, granddaughter Alexandra, and wrecked her. When Alexandra completed high school and couldn't decide between a Porsche hardtop or convertible as a graduation present, he purchased her both. That's when I lost Alexandra to the darkness. Alexandra spent around $1.5 million every year. Money was like a drug to her, but more addicted. Anyway, that wasn't why I called. We have a common buddy that needs your assistance. Can you come to the Sapphire Lounge in Beacon Hill as soon as possible? Is it a favor or a job? I inquired as I examined my empty wallet. Alexandra didn't grasp money as well as I did. I feel that individuals who are broke understand money much better than millionaires. Your hero, Thomas Magnum, never charged his friends. Alexandra laughed at me. If you arranged for me to live on Robin Master's estate for free, with a red Lamborghini, I wouldn't charge you either. Okay, he'll give you money, and maybe even a red Lamborghini. The Lord only knew what Alexandra was capable of buying when she was manic. Do not purchase me a red Lamborghini. Don't tell me what I should do. When can you come here? I couldn't wait to see Alexandra again, despite all I knew about the buzzsaw I was about to go on. I drove like a crazy across Manhattan streets to Beacon Hill. I parked my pickup truck in an alley on West 19th Street, behind the Sapphire Lounge, and close to Alexandra's white Maserati hardtop. The vehicle plate read Nessa 8. Alexandra came to the rear entrance of the closed club and allowed me in. She wrapped her arms around me and kissed me. "You're like a bad habit that no matter how hard I try, I can't break." I felt the same way about Alexandra but didn't say anything. Her kisses have always left me stunned. She wore modest Converse shoes to convey her laid-back personality, Nike leggings to demonstrate her fitness, and a simple red Gulfstream jet baseball cap to convey her wealth. We strolled down a long, narrow corridor packed with images of gorgeous ladies, some renowned. Alexandra sat on an austere white leather sofa with Hannah Myers, a long-standing mutual acquaintance. "Robbie, what are you doing here?" "I look awful," Trish exclaimed, looking in the mirror and immediately correcting her hair. I asked him to come. "You have to trust someone, and Mr. Righteous over here is perfect," Alexandra added, clasping Trish's shaky hand. "Alexandra, you should have asked me first," Trish said, turning away briefly. "I'm going to handle it in my own way." Trish, Alexandra, and I were Hawthorne Academy classmates and pals. Trish and I both grew up with two mothers. Mine were bisexual and married to my father, ethically and sexually if not legally. Trish's moms, Olivia and Julia Bennett, were lesbians. Her two moms were vehemently anti-male and very wealthy, like everyone else at the school except me. My mother taught at the school, thus I was a scholarship student there. Olivia Bennett owned and produced a successful TV talk show, while Julia Bennett served as the mayor of Beacon Hill. I had a thing on Trish in 7th school before meeting Alexandra. On Valentine's Day, I wrote her a poem at recess that included our favorite TV show The Brain Teaser's Pinky, "For his mind is quite dinky, I'd like to kiss Trish, because she's a real dish." Okay, so I was no contender for Robert Frost, but I was only 14 years old. Trish echoed back to me a sentence from the cartoon TV program Animaniacs. "Are you pondering what I'm pondering?" Trish kissed me. It was my first kiss and I had no concept that kissing required both tongues and lips. It seemed like an excellent concept. I praised my mom for instructing me to wash my teeth every morning. I began arranging our wedding. Some have said that I am excessively romantic and old-fashioned. There is, indeed, evidence to support that claim. Trish made a huge socio-political faux pas by inviting me to the school dance. I was briefly in paradise. Her mother, Julia Bennett, came up at my home and gave my two parents and me a screaming lecture about restrictive patriarchy, threatening to fire my mother from school and beat the heck out of me if I even looked at or talked to her daughter, Gertrude Ann Adams. She came up to me and attempted to smack my face. My father, Thomas Carter, grabbed her hand before she smacked me. Sarah Walker, my other mother, blanched when she saw my real mother, Margaret Carter. "Thomas Carter just saved your life, Julia Bennett. You're in danger right now. Please don't anger the Dragon Lady any further. Just leave while you can," she pleaded. My father went to my mother, Margaret Carter, or the Dragon Lady, and wrapped his arms around her, holding her back. My mother, however, did not protest. She leaned her head back to the left, obviously deep in concentration. One of my uncles runs the mob in Philly, another one runs it in Cape Cod. Right now, she's trying to decide which one she should have whack you. "Leave now and let me talk her out of it," Sarah Walker went on. Julia Bennett clasped her arms in front of her. Sarah Walker pointed to a wooden coat rack in the corner and said, "You don't scare me." She's also pretty good with that holstered Colt .45 caliber revolver hanging on the coat rack. Her dad taught her. He used to run the mafia in Philly and he still has friends out here. If Margaret Carter wants you to disappear, they'll never find your body. Margaret Carter took a long inhalation. I wouldn't bother my uncles. She gently removed an 8-inch ivory hairpin from her hair and spoke in a matter-of-fact tone, 3 octaves lower than usual. "When I was 15, a man tried to assault me and I killed him with this very hairpin. If you ever touch my son, he'll use it on you. Now get out of our home. Please leave." "She's not kidding," he said. He seemed afraid. My father fought to control his wife with his arms. Margaret Carter bit his hand. He let her go in anguish as she moved slowly toward Julia Bennett, her hairpin in hand. Julia Bennett rushed out. I chuckled and turned to face my folks. "I can't believe she fell for that. You three are the most peaceful people on earth. You made that all up, didn't you? I mean, except for Mom's gun over there." My mother's face was red with blood. She kissed my father's hand where she bit him and wrapped her arms around me. "No, dear, it's all true. I did kill that man. My uncles are dons, as was your grandfather." My mother looked over to my father before he was assassinated. Since I was the least tough boy in 7th grade, I guess I inherited my father's side of the family. Trish's mother forbade her from becoming friends with me or any other male in high school. We lost contact after high school, but she still has a special place in my heart. In the present, while waiting to pay for groceries, I read about Trish's love escapades in supermarket magazines. Trish's nightclub, Red Velvet, was a stylish establishment that catered to rich media people. She was constantly involved in a tumultuous relationship with an actress or singer. She preferred high-profile relationships with neurotic and overindulgent media superstars and former child stars, all of whom behaved like candidates in a Miss Dysfunctional America pageant. She would constantly break their hearts. I embraced and kissed Alexandra when I arrived, but I wasn't sure how to welcome Trish. I reached out to shake her hand, praying she wouldn't be upset or bite it off. Trish stopped sobbing for a while and half smiled at me. "Obi-Wan, you're my last hope." I take Star Wars quotes seriously. I could not stop myself from correcting her. I think the line is, "You're my only hope." You're so pedantic and didactic. You had to correct her. Alexandra shook her head. Trish's face lighted up as she heard the phrase, "You haven't changed since junior high school." "Robbie, are you pondering what I'm pondering?" I recalled her saying that to me in 7th grade, and I, too, smiled widely. Nuff. I think it was 7th grade. Which one of you is Pinky, and which one is the brain? Alexandra shook her head. Trish grabbed me, kissed me, and almost sucked out my tongue and wisdom teeth. Trish embraced me tightly, refused to let go, and continued to weep. I was startled yet thrilled. I was prepared to confront a Death Star and half expected one or both of her moms to rush through the doors, lightsabers pointed at my crotch. "Lucky for you two animaniacs that I'm not the jealous type," Alexandra added, patting Trish on the back. "Trish, don't forget though, that for the time being, has mine. You two can take over the world together when I find another rich husband and am done with him, if I'm ever done with him." "What about that Brazilian tycoon you left me for last month?" I said as my stomach was in a knot. "Unlike you, he couldn't make me climax and he couldn't make me laugh. I must be an idiot. I missed you, so I broke up with him." "You're worse than a bad habit, you're more like an addiction." Alexandra nodded. Now I'd think I was crazy if I didn't already know that I was crazy. "I gave up a fortune and you'd better make it up to me. The bar is open. I'm drinking a Mai Tai." "What are you drinking?" "It's a little early for me," I protested, "and for you too. You know how it reacts with your medicine." "Not a problem. I've stopped taking my antidepressants." "Trish, make another Mai Tai for my pasta lover." "Really, Alexandra?" I asked, in just half Italian. "I'm also part Irish, and if you're tossing about ethnic insults, I prefer being dubbed a potato pasta." Trish handed me my drink, and I took a supersized sip. She grabbed my hand and stroked it. "Robbie, I have a major issue, and Alexandra's right, I need your assistance and discretion. But I have to warn you, it may be dangerous. I get very drunk and very stupid very quickly." "Let me worry about the danger," I said, wanting to impress Trish since junior high school. I'm not especially brave, so announcing that may have been the dumbest thing I'd ever said. But with alcohol-induced bravado, I figured that if my mother had killed someone and my grandfather was a gangster, well, maybe it was in my DNA to be a tough guy, though there had never been any outward. "If my moms find out, they will murder me or, worse, disown me and take away my allowance. My club will close and I'll have to work for a livelihood." "Huh? I don't understand, everyone knows you're homosexual." Trish shook her head. "No, the images show me in bed with a guy. I've had to conceal my sexuality from my mothers my whole life. I am heterosexual. I have had to live a lie. They say I'm a gold star." "A what?" "A gold star is a lesbian who has never dated a male. I am not. I'm a hasbian, or former lesbian, although I was never really a lesbian, I only acted to satisfy my mothers. I was always referred to as a cushion queen. I put my head back on the pillow and let a lady do whatever she wants between my legs, but I don't touch her." I shook my head, like my dogs do when they are perplexed. "You aren't gay?" Trish said, touching my arm. "No. It's not like I haven't tried to be gay, but I always return to men. I'm straight. It's just the way I was born. Women don't turn me on, men do. I'm happier and much more comfortable with men. I've always been. My mom Julia Bennett sent me to a shrink when I invited you to my prom. She laid the guilt trip on me that she'd aborted 2 male babies and now I'm pulling this hetero on her. They thought it was a phase I was going through. I mean, I don't read the articles, I just look at the headlines while waiting in line at the grocery store. It's all made up by public relations professionals. None of this ever occurs. We just pose for a few shots at my club or inform the paparazzi where we'll be so they can come up and then create an altercation. Robbie, this is Hollywood, and everything is an illusion. My mother Olivia Bennett is becoming suspicious. I relocated Nola, the club's DJ, to my boyfriend's apartment as a roommate and beard. That way, if my mother found out I was going there, I'd have an explanation. Julia Bennett did not like Nola. She set me up with a girl called Brandy O'Brien. I had 2 dates with her, but she was a U-Haul lesbian. A U-Haul? Alexandra inquired. Yes, after 2 dates, she has already moved in with me. She didn't ask me, I didn't invite her, and I can't get her to go. She continues telling me we were destined to be together. She is an extremely butch bass guitar player for a retro-punk rock band called the Lavender Menace. You have to assist me. I am flying without a net, Robbie. Anyone as broke as you must be honest. Trish said, you're the only person I know who I can trust. And now my mother, Julia Bennett, is running for Congress from Beacon Hill as a stepping stone to the US Senate. So you are heterosexual. What about tolerance, consenting individuals, and all that, I asked. I am her poster girl for life without men. My mother has always used me to generate funds for her political campaigns, first for city council, then for mayor, and now to get commitments of almost $8 million for her congressional campaign and 10 times that if she goes for Senate. I am a very skilled and convincing fundraiser. There is a cadre of ultra-wealthy lesbians in the nation who will go to any length to have her elected to the United States Senate. If word got out that she raised a straight kid, she'd be kicked out of her political action committee, Wealthy Women of Beacon Hill, and all of her money and support would dry up the following day. I believe she would murder me. I understand she is lesbian, but why does she detest males, straight women, and even bisexual women so much, I asked. When she was 14 and realized she was lesbian, she was attacked by a male. If she could, she would murder every guy on the planet, homosexual or straight. What does that mean? She is very homonormative. I asked. Well, heteronormative implies that you believe being heterosexual is ethically better. Homonormative implies that my mothers believe that being a lesbian is ethically preferable than being straight. You have to get that footage back for me before it goes up on the internet. I needed a minute to process everything. Let's assume for a moment that I can't get back the videos. Would working for a living be so bad? Trish and Alexandra both began laughing at me. No offense, Robbie, but it doesn't seem to have worked out so well for you, Trish said. So you'll be flying coach instead of first class. Would it be that bad? Trish and Alexandra laughed even harder. I didn't see why what I said was hilarious. Robbie, dear, we do not travel first class with the vast unwashed. We travel on a private jet. You are aware of this. Am I the only person I know who does not fly by private jet? Well, honey, you're the only one I know that doesn't, Trish said. Now do you realize what I had to put up with while dating him? Alexandra rubbed my head, as if I were a stupid kid. Are you sure these videos really exist? I asked. Trish nodded her head. Nola was once my girlfriend. She sent us this. Alexandra opened the lid of the laptop computer on the table. She clicked many times before turning the computer screen to face me. Trish was definitely having animated, athletic sex with a male. That guy was fortunate, since she was a crazy lady in bed. I recognize her boyfriend. He was an actor who served time in prison for beating up a girlfriend around a year or 2 ago. The press made him out to be rather aggressive. Did you not see the camera? It seems that it was rather near. Of course, I saw it. I created the videos. We like to watch them later to, polish our technique for the next time. Nola took my computer. Did she give you this on a flash drive or via email? Trish took another deep breath and a deep gulp of red wine. I received a URL. A URL is an internet address. I clicked on it, and then there I was. She claimed she will email the URL to my mom until I pay her $28,000. You have to be honest to yourself. Will you pretend for the rest of your life? I asked. Only until my mother wins the congressional race or maybe the Senate election. Oh, I do not know. It entails losing my moms. What about your lover, David Parker? They've done some horrible things to me, but I love them and don't want to lose them. You and him love each other and want to marry, correct? I asked. Yes, but I am terrified to come out of the closet. My mom's are vengeful. If they find out, it will jeopardize his job. Trish answered, they can and will do that. If they really love you, they'll have to accept you for who you are. Alexandra leaned over and grabbed Trish's hand. You do not know my mom's. I have to pay the blackmail. I will have to borrow the money from the bank. That is a mistake. Alexandra wrinkled her nose and said, there is another way. And no, I don't mean a paradigm shift. Do you even understand what paradigm shift means? I asked. I am not sure what that signifies. But give me some time before you pay her. I'm terrified of what she'll do if I don't pay her by noon, as she requested. Trish lit a cigarette. I want you to pay the ransom to Nola on my behalf and ensure there are no copies. He'll go to the bank with you and borrow the money. There could be another option, I responded. I don't want you to beat her up or kill her unless you absolutely have to, Trish said. Believe me, I won't murder anybody. I do need to contact someone who understands computers, however. I called Kevin Miller, a computer game programmer and genius who lives on a luxury yacht 2 boats down from me. Writing computer games pays handsomely. Kevin Miller, how is my website getting along? It's fantastic. I made you taller and more muscular. I placed your head on Arnold Schwarzenegger's body. You look like you could take down a heavyweight. Are you going to Vegas with us? No road excursions for me this weekend. I have a job. I've also got a job for you. You'd have to hack onto someone's PC. Is this good with you? Kevin Miller laughed and questioned me about the URL address. He entered it into his computer and watched the program. Wow, what a performance. But this girl is not a hacker. She doesn't know anything about computer security. Give me a second. Alexandra gave me a look that indicated she was rapidly losing faith in me. I'm inside her computer. I can swap another person's face for your clients. Will it help? Trish nodded. Yes, that sounds great to us. Whose face did you have in mind? I asked. Well, I've got film of Eleanor Adams and another of Margaret Wright. You decide, or I may use both. I may swap her face with your clients. I doubt either of them would like having their faces linked to that physique. It will take me around 5 minutes. I'll remove your client's face and she'll never be able to recover it. That sounds amazing. What do we need to do? Alexandra spoke out, saying, pay me $5,000. That sounds like a lot of money for 5 minutes of work. Okay, pay me $100 for doing it and $4,900 for knowing how to do it, Kevin Miller told me. Alexandra, if you pay him, I promise to pay you back. You know I always do, Trish said. I'll call you back when I'm done, Kevin Miller said. My fee is also $5,000, I informed Alexandra. Alexandra was going to fight with me, so I quickly added $1 for calling Kevin Miller and $4,999 for knowing who to call at a moment's notice. Alexandra drew out 2 checks for me. I can't believe you're actually charging me money like some mercenary SOB, she said, smiling. I'm really proud of you. I believe you have finally grown up and sold out. I'm paying you $10,000, I guess I'll take it out in exchange. You're mine, Alexandra grabbed my buttocks. Trish did not laugh. For this money, I want you to go to Nola's apartment and threaten to call the police if she does it again. If that doesn't work, threaten to kill her, Trish said. Kevin Miller called a few minutes later and we followed his instructions by clicking on the URL again. Hillary and Kamala were having a great time. Trish's mood improved considerably. By the way, how are your parents? Alexandra inquired. The 3 of them are doing great, I said. The club's entrance opened and a muscular young lady with black hair wearing a t-shirt that said I think I'm a lesbian swaggered in and raced up to Trish. Your mom is outside, parking the car. She grabbed Trish with her left hand and kissed her hard on the lips. Who is she? The lady yelled at Trish, pointing to Alexandra. Down, girl, Trish replied, pushing her away. Alexandra and Robbie, this is Brandy. Back off, she's mine, Brandy said Alexandra as she gripped Trish and puffed out her chest. As Brandy turned towards Alexandra, I saw that she had a musical note tattooed on the back of her incredibly muscular neck. I don't want to get into a fist fight or wrestle with Brandy. Trish's mother, Julia Bennett, strolled in wearing a conventional Brooks Brothers pinstriped suit. I think I could hear Darth Vader's theme in my brain as she approached me and poked me in the chest with a razor-sharp fingernail propelled by a very powerful arm. I recall this inquisitive individual, Gertrude and Adams. What's he doing here? If you beat me again, you'll tell my mama about it, and she'll make you weep, I remarked in a pathetic effort at comedy. I am not frightened of your mother. I'm a big lady, but you're still a small boy who needs a woman to fight his fights. Try jabbing me again, and you'll see. Julia Bennett attempted to slash my face with her fingernail. I shifted, and her finger crept up my nose. I grabbed her finger and bent it backwards till it shattered. She pushed away and began to weep. Big girls don't cry, I clarified. Trish, like we were saying, will be happy to help you set up our high school reunion. I knew the fib would pique her mother's interest, and it was a good one. I decided to visit Trish's boyfriend David Parker's place to ensure that Nola did not have any copies on another computer. Trish gave me David Parker's location, a short overview of where everything was, and a key to his flat. I recalled page 1 of Simon Hawthorne's book Private Eye. Always pay the money before beginning work for a client. I went 8 miles to Alexandra's bank and converted the 2 checks into cash. Then I headed to my bank to deposit the cash. When I got at the apartment, I parked a block away and went to what seemed to be the safest apartment in Boston. It was next to a coffee shop and flanked by a dozen police cruisers. I had long wondered where I might find a policeman when I needed one, and now I knew. A Subaru hatchback with a Yale sticker obstructed the driveway to the complex. What sort of egotistical idiot would do that? I pondered. The automobile had a parking ticket, which was no surprise given how many police cars were stationed on the street. Parking enforcement personnel would always catch you within 6 minutes. I put on my medical gloves and rang David Parker and Nola's doorbells to ensure no one was there. Trish may have trusted David Parker, but I didn't. No one replied, but the door seemed to have been pushed open and then closed. I allowed myself in. I strolled into the living room and everything went dark. It didn't go dark, everything became blue, but why argue? The sound of a police siren roused me up approximately 40 minutes later. I got a massive headache. Blood trickled down from my skull. A big, blooded Emmy Award lay next to me on the floor. I held my pistol in my left hand. A girl lay on the floor next to me, her stomach protruding from a bullet hole below her chest, and some of her vital organs spread out on the wall behind her like an abstract piece of art, a Picasso produced by a .45 caliber slug. She drew the letter B and a line across it with her blood on the floor next to her. Even though I was still drowsy, I attempted to utilize my investigative and crime scene analysis techniques to determine what inferences the situation would lead me to draw. I analyzed the available evidence. There was a dead corpse with a gunshot wound, and I was holding a pistol. Obviously, I was the killer. Just as I was ready to congratulate myself on my clever insight, I began to think more clearly and realized that I had not shot anybody, but that the police, who were definitely on their way, would believe I had. Either Trish went to a lot of bother to frame me, or I was the unluckiest private investigator in town. Sometimes I don't think fast in an emergency, but this time I did. I holstered my revolver, opened the back window, and leaped into the alley. I took off my shirt to wipe the blood off my face with the inside of it, then put it back on. This was the time in every film noir that the PI sought assistance from a police officer. The only officer I had a casual acquaintance with was the one who issued me parking citations every month for parking on the north side of the street when they were supposed to clean the streets but did not. I didn't think he'd be very helpful. Plan A was to get out of there and solve the case on my own, then march the offender into police headquarters while an APB was certainly on my tail, ready to shoot me on sight. I went a block to my vehicle and drove slowly away. I considered Plan B, driving to a police station and describing what occurred. There was a possibility they'd believe me, but it was more likely that they'd arrest me. I ran it through my head like a trigonometric equation. The cops would definitely interrogate Trish, and she would undoubtedly hand me up. The second option was that Trish had set everything up to frame me. The second lesson of Private Eye emphasized the need of not trusting or believing anybody, including the client. I called Trish, but there was no response. I called Alexandra. She didn't know where Trish was since she left the club straight after me. I really didn't believe Trish would do that to me, but who knows? The police would think that since I fled the crime scene, I was guilty. I decided to go with Plan C, reveal the truth and hope for the best. I drove back to the murder site as 2 uniformed officers exited the apartment complex. The blonde-haired, surfer-looking one blocked the entry, while the dark-haired Hispanic cop used a roll of yellow crime scene tape from their police vehicle to tape up the front of the building. I left my revolver in the glove box and casually approached the 2 police officers. I flew into the air after tripping on a skateboard. My head struck the concrete hard, and it bled even more. Blood was also gushing from my nostrils. The officers saw my tumble and laughed. "Hello, may I talk with you for a second? You're not harmed that badly, you'll survive. Leave us alone, we're busy right now." The surfer policeman continued on his cell phone, placing a wager on a game that night as he turned to the Hispanic officer, who called his phone and, based on the sound of it, began speaking with his girlfriend. "I think I can help you," I replied. I said leave us alone. Surfer boy was furious. He was checking the spread or something when his companion called the phone. I patted the Hispanic officer's shoulder. He turned and grabbed my arm, twisting it around. "You're impeding a crime investigation," he added, handcuffing me and placing me on the ground. "Now shut the hell up, or I'll mess you up really bad." He continued talking to his girlfriend while eating a chocolate-covered donut. I saw the hatchback Subaru with the Yale decal was missing. An unmarked vehicle arrived and 2 detectives stepped out. The slim, 40-year-old Asian lady looked to be in control. The 30-year-old Asian guy was respectful to her. They approached the uniformed officers, who came to attention. "Is this the perp?" the lady, whose name tag read Donna Katsumi, inquired. "No, has just some a-hole who was bothering us," Surfer Boy said. "I'm a material witness to the murder inside this apartment," I cried, "but Holmes and Watson over here won't let me complete my statement. They were too occupied on their mobile phones, betting and planning dates." The Hispanic officer returned my gaze. "Has covered in blood. Did not you notice? He tumbled off his bike, or whatever. That is why he is bleeding," Surfer Boy said. "Good job, police. I'll include that in my report," Detective Katsumi said, shaking her head in disdain. "I am a qualified private detective trainee. I came here to interrogate the resident of the unit." The door was pushed open, however if you look inside my jeans' right side pocket, you'll see that I have a key and hence no cause to break down the door. I opened the door, stepped in and was smacked over the head with an Emmy Award. I awoke to see that my pistol had been used to murder the victim and then put in my left hand. I did not know the victim. I had no motivation. In right hand, I can't even blow my nose with my left hand and I have no gunshot residue on my hands, or so I believe. Now that everyone watches CSI and NCIS, they all think they are forensic scientists, Detective Katsumi said. "Are you going to give me any nonsense about not revealing who your client is? The PI code states that you never expose your client's name until the authorities get a warrant. No movie PI ever existed, and Aristotle's text was unequivocal about it. Will you tell me, or do I arrest you for impeding a homicide investigation and possibly murder and conspiracy to commit murder?" "I can't tell you because the information is privileged," I told you. "There is no privilege between a PI and a client. Now tell me the client's name." I didn't know if that was true. I hadn't yet read that chapter in Private Eye High. "You're right, but there is between an attorney and a client. I work for an attorney and am not answering any more questions without my attorney present." Detective Katsumi laughed at me. "I'll bet your attorney's client is Hannah Myers. That's the name on the computer inside on the desk. And Trish is sure the CSI team arrived and Detective Katsumi entered the murder site behind them. She emerged 15 minutes later and I recounted what had occurred. It was very obvious that I was speaking the truth and Katsumi appeared to be giving me the benefit of the doubt. After feeling the large welt on my head, she pulled out a pack of chewing gum and handed it to me. I nodded and she threw it about 5 feet to my left hand. I attempted reaching forward to grab it with my right hand but bungled it. I grabbed it up from the ground with my right hand. He could have shot the dead girl and then hit himself on the back of the head to establish an alibi, Surfer Boy added, pleased of his theory. "That's good police work," Katsumi replied, shaking her head. "Let me tell you what I'm wondering. He couldn't catch the gum with his left hand. His right hand? He would have hit himself on the right side of his head and shot the victim with his right hand, not his left." The CSI team appeared and indicated for the detectives to join them. Detective Katsumi left me and returned to the murder site. She responded laughing. "The computer has some sex tapes," she said, grinning. "Do you represent Eleanor Adams and Margaret Wright?" The CSI lead was not the gorgeous CSI lady you see on television. She resembled a librarian. She stated that the blood splatter evidence corroborated my account of being struck from behind and sliding forward. The gunshot residue test she gave revealed that I had not discharged a gun. The 2 uniformed cops were sad. They were, I suppose, expecting to make careers as investigators despite my death. I sat on the curb, feeling dizzy. Of course, after you were hit over the head, you would have been justified in shooting the deceased. We could call it self-defense and everyone could go home in time for dinner, Detective Katsumi explained, and then she called for an ambulance to take me to a hospital to see if I had a concussion and to see what, if anything, my DNA matched. "I'm all right," I responded, attempting to stand. But I moved too fast and everything went dark again. I awoke in a hospital bed, shackled to the rail. I needed to go to the restroom, so I rang the bell. No one arrived. I called again, the same outcome. I've done enough magic tricks to know how to get out of shackles. I glanced around and saw a pen on the table beside the bed. I finally made it to the table and the pen after much twisting, turning, and gyrating. I removed the pocket clip and jimmered open the handcuffs. I went to the restroom and felt a lot of relief. I climbed back into bed and lightly reattached the shackle. Eventually, a nurse entered my room, took pity on me, and called Alexandra for me. I needed a lawyer, and Alexandra was the only one I knew who would accept my case for free, especially since she had gotten me into this situation. Alexandra later visited my hospital room, bringing a teddy bear and a drink. I assumed they were for me until Alexandra began sipping the milkshake and placed the adorable black and white panda bear in her purse. "I'm impressed that you wouldn't give up Trish's name." "That was very Sam Spade and Philip Marlowe of you," Alexandra murmured, kissing my forehead. She said that this was a high-profile case since police discovered Trish was the mayor's daughter. The police needed a fast suspect to keep the reporters at bay, and I served as the human sacrifice. My thinking was a bit confused, but thanks to whatever they injected me with, I slept peacefully till the following morning. My arraignment took place via video call as I lay in a hospital bed. Alexandra was at the courts and talked about my excellent character and community work, including anecdotes of my many mothers and brothers. Alexandra said that the police did not read me my rights when they detained me. The assistant district attorney said that my rights were read to me. Alexandra told the court that this was a clear faucet since I was unconscious with a concussion when I was detained. The assistant DA said that he never claimed I was cognizant when my rights were read to me. He then brought up my family history, stating I was named after my late grandpa, a notorious mobster, and that many of my relatives had criminal records. "Your Honor," I said quietly, "those men lived in Providence and died years before I was born. I've never even been to Providence." The judge warned me not to talk. "Your Honor," Alexandra answered, "the prosecution's claim that my client is guilty because he's half Italian is illegal ethnic profiling. That's a clear violation of his civil rights and a constitutionally impermissible argument." Alexandra pleased me. She was as intelligent as she was beautiful. I was in serious romantic deep water with no life gear. My brother, Father Daniel Carter, was there to demonstrate that I come from a God-fearing family. Alexandra said that I had no motivation, no gunshot residue, and had even dedicated my time to assist underprivileged children. The court freed me on $10,000 bail, which Alexandra graciously provided. I knew she was going to make me pay for it, but I wasn't sure how. It came out that Lila Stone was a well-known DJ with a large fan base. As I walked out of the hospital with Alexandra, I was met by a swarm of reporters and television crews. "I think you should be cautious what you wish for." For the first time in my life, I got the celebrity that I had always desired, and I despised it. But I assumed I'd utilize it to highlight my status as a PI in the hopes of getting some work. Alexandra kept repeating, "No comment," but I wouldn't go quietly into the night. "My name is Danny Whitman. I'm a private investigator. Je suis innocent," I said, referencing Alfred Dreyfus from the Dreyfus Affair. "I accuse the police of using me as a scapegoat to get you off their backs and onto mine." "Why did you break the finger of the mayor of Beacon Hill?" Someone in the crowd yelled, "Why was it in my nose?" I yelled back, "Is it true that you killed Lila Stone because you hate lesbians?" Yelled an unnamed reporter. Somebody hit me over the head with an Emmy Award and knocked me unconscious. Maybe whoever did it hated heterosexuals. "There's your hate crime. You're not allowed to say that," cried a protester with a placard demanding the death sentence for my alleged hate crime against women. Alexandra rushed me into her vehicle and we raced away. She described how reporters and television crews had encircled my boat. My brother, Father Daniel Carter, had rescued my dogs and transported them to Alexandra's home, where I planned to remain for a day or two. I was famished. I wanted to dine and celebrate my freedom, but I didn't have much money. Alexandra offered to pay for our meal at a fantastic restaurant, but I declined. I got an idea that was either amazingly fantastic or completely insane, possibly as a consequence of the hospital-grade painkillers or just being close Alexandra and smelling her hair. I asked her to take us to the store and had her wait in the vehicle while I surreptitiously purchased supplies for a makeshift party. Then I asked her to take us to the Burger Haven. I bought 2 Happy Meals, one for her with a pink unicorn toy and one for myself in blue. I opened the shopping bag, placed a paper tablecloth on our table, lighted 2 lights, and then opened a cheap bottle of red wine, which I thought would go well with a Big Mac and fries. Alexandra chuckled as she glanced at the candles, champagne, and tablecloth. I can't decide if you have a quirky imagination or if you're crazier than I am. She kissed me. I've never been to McDonald's before. Alexandra played with her unicorn while eating her first Big Mac. She was unfamiliar with how to eat a burger with a lot of sauce and it flowed down her face. I leaned over and licked the ketchup off her chin. It truly got me on, honestly, everything involving Alexandra turned me on. If we had been alone in her vehicle, away from prying eyes, I would have made this a very spectacular Happy Meal. Alexandra's unicorn kissed mine when we were eating fries. I like this place. It's fun, especially with wine, though I would have chosen a Bordeaux instead of Sutter Home, she told me. It's what I grew up drinking on Friday night Shabbat dinners, I attempted to clarify. Alexandra cocked her head, thinking for a bit. I'm not saying we'll ever get married, but if we did, I might convert to Judaism as long as we drank good wine on Friday nights and not Sutter Home. Perhaps it was the wine, but for a little time, I forgot I was facing a murder charge. I forgot how hellish living with Alexandra might be at times and lighted up like a Christmas tree, or more properly, a Hanukkah menorah. Is that a marriage proposal? I inquired. I'm not sure. It wouldn't be the dumbest thing I've ever said. It might be the smartest. Let me think about it when I'm not off my bipolar meds and you aren't facing life in prison. We left McDonald's and went to Alexandra's house. She resided in a penthouse in the West Village, one of Manhattan's most expensive areas. As we drove the last few blocks, she showed us where different celebrities resided. That's where Anderson Cooper has a townhouse and a few streets over is where Sarah Jessica Parker lives, she informed us. In the poorest girl on the block, surrounded by people with gobs more money, Alexandra moaned, until my grandfather dies and I inherit his fortune. She grinned and laughed again. Alexandra's laughing helped me forget about the difficulty I was in, and I joined in. The first time I ever saw you was on our first day of high school, I told you. You were facing away from me and I couldn't see your face. You were giggling about something. The sound made me forget how nervous and apprehensive I was at a new school, and I fell in love with that giggle. Then you broke out into raucous laughter, putting your whole heart and soul into it like a happy child who hadn't yet learned to hold back on displaying emotions. I fell in love with your laughter before I fell in love with you. I could hear Alexandra's giggles. It crushed my heart that it couldn't take away her anguish and despair. Alexandra's building has an own underground parking garage. She tapped a button on her key fob and the gate opened like a doorway into another planet. We parked beside her white Maserati and her hardtop Maserati. It must be good to be wealthy. My mouth fell when I saw a red Lamborghini parked in the next slot. Someday, when this murder indictment is over, you have to let me drive your Lamborghini, I murmured, running my fingers over the hood. Alexandra grinned. I thought you didn't care about cars. I don't, but this isn't just any car, it's a Lamborghini, like Magnums. I peered inside the vehicle and ran my hands over the steering wheel. So, you know how to drive a stick? Alexandra inquired, lifting an eyebrow. No, I never learned. You'll have to teach me. She smiled. What do you think of the license plate? The label read FLWLSS1. It's a classification for a diamond's clarity. It means flawless, I told you. That's you all right. It doesn't refer to me. I got this car for you. As much as I wanted that car, I couldn't accept it. But I had to let Alexandra down gently, or she'd go into a deep depression. That's incredibly sweet and generous of you, but I can't accept it. This car must have cost a fortune. It was free. My grandfather had his hip replaced and can't drive a stick anymore. I still can't accept it. I gave Alexandra a hug. You don't have to own it, you can just drive it when we're together. I don't want you to ever think I love you for your money. She was chuckling. That diamond earring you found on your boat and returned to me is worth 3 or 4 times what this Lamborghini cost. We entered Alexandra's building's lobby. She swiped her card at the elevator and the doors swung open. We're going to the penthouse, she added with a little smile, like a child showing off a gleaming new toy. As we approached the top level, the doors opened to show an apartment that seemed more like a castle. Floor-to-ceiling windows provided stunning views of Manhattan. The decor was sleek and contemporary, with hints of old charm. The room was clearly professionally decorated, even down to the fresh flowers in a crystal vase on the foyer table. Alexandra led me past a guest bedroom and into her own. I posted $10,000 bail guaranteeing that you'd appear in court, and I always get my money's worth, she added, wrapping her arms around me and pulling me to her four-poster bed, wrapped in a silk canopy. I dropped my suitcase and allowed myself to be drawn in. You really didn't have to do all this for me, I replied, glancing around the room, which was adorned with subtle indications of luxury, imported French linens, a $10,000 sound system, and what seemed to be a custom-built walk-in closet. Alexandra smirked. Oh, please. You're worth it. She pressed a button on her remote, and Sinatra's voice crooned from the speakers, filling the room with the opening notes of All the Way. Remember this song? She murmured, a nostalgic grin spreading over her lips. You played it the first time we made love. You were so corny, but so sweet, that I cried. I hadn't responded. The recollection of that night, the first time I felt genuinely connected to someone, washed over me. Alexandra sat down on the bed and stared at me, her eyes full of mischief and need. There's something I've been curious about all these years. You have to tell me the truth. The first time we made love was wonderful, but when we made love a week later, you were unbelievable. Did you read some book or something? I wept and placed my hands over my mouth. You inspired me. Cut the crap, sailor, Alexandra said. I want the truth. Fine, I admitted. I wanted to make you happy. So, I asked my brother Nathan Carter for advice. Nathan Carter. The autistic one. Alexandra said with a giggle. Why him? Because my other brother is a Catholic priest, I told him. Nathan Carter asked his friend Rachel Adams for a referral. Rachel Adams, the porn star. Alexandra laughed even more. Yeah. Nathan Carter paid for a tutor, who taught me a few things. A tutor? Alexandra said, raising her eyebrow. You mean a prostitute? I guess that depends on your point of view. Her name was Amber Scott, and I think of her more as a sexual and spiritual advisor. Alexandra couldn't stop herself from laughing. Spiritual advisor. She brought me to a synagogue the next morning, but before that, there was an hour lecture, then a lab, and some things I did for extra credit. The class was pass-fail, and I had to pull an all-nighter before I passed. I'll say you did, Alexandra said, leaning in and kissing me. My last husband could have used a lesson. Maybe you could introduce him to her. She climbed on top of me, and for the next hour or two, I forgot about everything else. I could only think of Alexandra and how she made me feel alive. We lay there, exhausted yet content, as if the outer world did not exist. We need food and coffee, Alexandra eventually said, shattering the trance. She put on a lovely Japanese kimono and went to the kitchen. She prepared us cappuccinos using a copper-clad machine that seemed more costly than my whole boat. As we drank our coffee, I attempted to redirect the topic to more urgent issues. We ought to talk about the case now, I said. Now that I have some caffeine in me, I really want to know who the killer is. That's not what you were paid to find out, Alexandra answered, her tone reserved. Screw the money. I want to get my hands on the person who conked me over the head. I can't talk about the case with you, she added, appearing concerned. I may have a conflict of interest. Samantha, that means it was Trish, I responded, finally putting the pieces together. I can't believe it. It doesn't mean it was Trish, Alexandra added immediately. It means I don't know if it was Trish, so I want you to lay off this investigation. No, I can't, I told you. My neck is on the line. What about the private eye code? She requested. You aren't supposed to turn on a client. Paradigm shift, I corrected you. And now I know what it means. If the client is trying to put me in prison, he'll do whatever it takes to stay out. Alexandra shook her head, frustrated. Since I paid you and Trish is my client, you'd be violating the law to continue investigating without my approval and direction. I cracked a joke. You don't really think that'll stop me? No, she answered, but saying that to you gets me off the hook for a malpractice suit or disbarment proceedings. I recognized how hazardous my situation was. If Alexandra sold me out. If Trish did it and she paid you enough money, would you feed me to the lions for this murder? I questioned. Alexandra smiled slyly and inserted her tongue into my ear, nibbling on my earlobe. You have nothing to worry about, lover. I wouldn't sell you out for less than $1 million, and Trish doesn't have that kind of money. I glanced at her with concern. I don't know if you're serious, and that scares me. I don't know either, and that scares the hell out of me too. Alexandra poured milk into her coffee and swallowed it in one drink. I quit, I said. I no longer work for you or Trish. In walking right out of this door, finding the killer, and turning that person into the police as a matter of self-preservation. Nothing you say or do can keep me here. Alexandra opened her sheer hand-painted silk kimono and let it slide down her body to the floor. She stood nude, with a mischievous smirk on her lips. Okay, so maybe you can keep me here for a little longer, I murmured, lifting her up and taking her back to bed. I don't always follow my instincts. If I ended up in jail, I'd have something to remember for the next 20 to 40 years. After another round of passion, I laid next to Alexandra, my body fatigued but my thoughts racing with the idea that I was still facing a murder charge. Even as I stroked my fingers over Alexandra's hair, a sensation of dread persisted in the back of my mind. I knew I had to keep focused on locating the murderer, but being around Alexandra always clouded my judgment. Samantha, this has got to stop, I murmured gently. We can't see each other anymore, at least not romantically. She turned over to face me, her fingers gently drawing patterns on my chest. If that's what you want, she said, her voice quiet but forceful. It's not about what I want, I said, feeling both frustrated and wanting. You're gorgeous, and I'm not. You're rich, and I'm not. This can't last, and I have to leave now. If I wait, I'll end up joining the broken-hearted club again. Alexandra's nails delicately touched my chest, a little, amused grin appearing on her lips. You know what you have to do, she said softly. I mean, you'll dump me as soon as you meet a rich guy, I added, attempting to strengthen my resolve. It depends on how rich, Alexandra joked, leaning down to kiss my neck. Why prolong the suspense and agony? I groaned as I leaned into her embrace. You're a princess from the West Village, and I'm just a bum from the marina. You have the face and body of a goddess, and, well, just look at me. Alexandra cracked a joke. That's the first thing you've said that makes any sense. You never confused your financial worth with your worth as a human being. You're smart, honest, funny, and a very considerate and imaginative lover. You're the only man I've ever dated who I actually loved. If I ever have a baby, I'd only want it with you. I looked out the window toward Alexandra's rooftop pool, a vision of the two of us playing with a child flashing through my mind. Then another photograph surfaced, Alexandra carrying a baby carriage along Madison Avenue, spending a lot at fancy retailers. If we had a girl, we'd name her after Alexandra's late mother, but what if Alexandra's mood swing seized control? I'd have to care for our children, but could I trust her to be a responsible mother? My parents always claimed that one day I'd be a wonderful father, but would Alexandra be a decent mother? Was I getting ahead of myself? Alexandra clapped her fingers in front of my face, jolting me back into reality. You're drifting, Robbie, she said. You still want to play detective, don't you? Yes, I said, placing down my coffee cup with renewed resolution. And I need to talk to Trish again. This time, we'll get everyone together, all the key players, and see if the truth comes out. Alexandra's eyes glittered with curiosity. I love it when you take charge like this. I want to help you solve this murder. We'll be like Nick and Nora Charles in The Thin Man, or Rick Castle and Detective Kate Beckett in Castle. That's perfect, I said. They were rich, had fun, and had a dog. Can we rename one of my dogs Asta? Alexandra shook her head. Now we need to make some calls, she continued. We'll set up a meeting with Trish and her boyfriend, David Parker, at the club. We'll also invite her mothers, but don't tell Trish they'll be there. If we're lucky, this will all come to a head. She called as I was getting ready. We left the apartment and drove to the Sapphire Lounge in her red Lamborghini. I drove, and despite the murder charges hanging over me, I couldn't help but love the sound of the engine purring under my palms. We drove up in front of the club, the enormous pink neon sign glowing above us. I knocked on the door, and Trish and David Parker welcomed us inside. David Parker had a bad-looking cut on his chin and a scrape on his neck. We waited in the dimly lighted lounge, waiting for Trish's mother to come. Trish was uneasy, as if she still wanted to keep her secret concealed. She half hid behind David Parker, a tough-looking man with a sword tattoo on his forearm. He seemed to be capable of protecting her, and, if necessary, killing someone. Trish's mom came a few minutes later. Julia Bennett arrived first, her finger bound to a splint. She aimed it toward David Parker, her eyes steely and cruel. "Who is he and what is he doing here?" she insisted. Trish became pale and her voice trembled. "Sit down and listen," I murmured quietly. "David Parker is Trish's boyfriend. She's straight. She isn't a lesbian. She prefers men. It's not a defect. You can scream and yell, but you can't change her orientation. She was born that way. If you love her, you'll have to live with it." Olivia Bennett, who had followed Julia Bennett into the club, hugged her partner. They both wept. "Would you consider conversion therapy?" Julia Bennett said, her tone tinged with desperation. Trish shakes her head. "No," she said, her tone firm despite her obvious dread. Olivia Bennett moved away from Julia Bennett. "This is all your fault," she cried at her boyfriend. "I wanted to send her to that all-girls school in the valley, but you didn't want to drive that far. I warned you what would happen if she associated with boys. I've never been so ashamed." "Maybe she's bisexual," Julia Bennett replied, staring at Trish as if trying for some middle ground. "I don't approve of it, but I think we could live with that. I'm not bisexual. I like men, period," Trish stated, her voice rising. "How do you submit to masculine oppression and subjugation? How can you love a man?" Julia Bennett shouted, her rage rising. "I learned that you two can love whoever you want, so why can't I?" Trish said through sobs. Julia Bennett took a deep breath, her cheeks flushing. "Did you think about what you're doing to my political career? Did you even consider what this scandal would mean to my supporters?" Trish stood up straight and took a deep breath, meeting her mother's gaze. Olivia Bennett grinned. "I refuse to live a lie just to please your prejudiced political patrons. Your boy Toy can kiss his acting career goodbye. He'll make 3 phone calls and his days are over. Can you park cars, buddy boy?" Trish grabbed David Parker's hand hard. "No, you won't. I know all about your unreported political/fund. If you want to destroy David Parker's career and my club, go right ahead. But remember, he'll take you both down with us. We may end up on the street, but you two will end up in prison." Julia Bennett and Olivia Bennett's expressions shifted from anger to fear, and they stopped threatening Trish and David Parker. There was a long pause as the weight of Trish's remarks hovered in the air. "Now that that's out of the way, we need to deal with the murder," I remarked, breaking the silence. "There isn't much time. The police are on their way here. One of you killed Nola, and we all need to get our story straight." David Parker leaned back, his face inscrutable. "You think I killed her?" he questioned, his tone somewhat challenging. "You had motive, means, and opportunity, plus you've got a criminal record and a scuffed-up face," I replied, staring at him. "Where were you when Nola was shot?" I said. "I spent the day filming a TV pilot," David Parker said, holding my stare without flinching. "I went to Olivia Bennett and said, I have about 50 witnesses. And you, Olivia Bennett? Did you kill her?" Olivia Bennett shook her head firmly. "No, I did not kill her." "Julia Bennett," I said, my voice quiet and serious. "Did you have a reason to kill Nola?" Julia Bennett's gaze tightened. "Why would I kill her?" "I might have wanted to kill one of you," she replied, indicating at David Parker and me. "But I had no reason to kill a woman who meant nothing to me." "Alexandra," I murmured, my voice softening as I turned to face her. "Where were you when Nola was murdered?" "Oh, so now I'm a suspect, too." Alexandra's eyes blazed with rage. "Robbie, if I did it, I swear I'd confess just to avoid this ridiculous questioning." "Where were you?" I questioned one more time. "I was working at the museum, with about 20 witnesses," Alexandra remarked, crossing her arms. "You know that." "Trish, that leaves you," I murmured, my eyes fixed on her. "You had motive, means, and opportunity. You didn't answer your phone when I called you, and your alibi is shaky. Where were you?" Before Trish could react, there was a loud tap at the club's door. Everyone turned to gaze as Brandy O'Brien entered the room, her swaggering presence dominating the air. "Who the hell are you?" I inquired, despite already knowing the answer. Brandy was wearing her customary leather jacket and trousers with a punk rock attitude to match. She had a musical note tattoo on the back of her neck and seemed to be prepared to fight. "Trish was with me," Brandy said, her voice hoarse. "We were back at our apartment, having fun, if you know what I mean. And then I made us dinner." "Is that your final answer, or do you want to use a lifeline?" I questioned, my voice dripping with sarcasm. I was running out of leads when I discovered something unusual. The tattoo on Brandy's neck wasn't simply a musical note, it was a G clef. Everything fell into place. Before she died, Nola drew a letter B with a line across it. It wasn't the letter B at all, but a musical note that served as a clue to the murderer. "Brandy, why did you kill Nola?" I said, my tone calm but stern. Brandy's expression stiffened. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I didn't kill anyone," she said, taking a step toward me. Her muscles stiffened as if she was about to fight. Trish's face became pale as she gazed at Brandy. "Wait, you." Her voice trailed off, her eyes wide with comprehension. Brandy hit me in the gut before bolting for the door. Alexandra pulled me back up as I slumped over and gasped for air. "Call the police," I said. "Alexandra. Tell them to put out an APB for Brandy O'Brien." "You mean an APB, right?" Alexandra clarified, smiling. "All points bulletin." "Yes, that's what I said," I grumbled, still collecting my breath. "Her car has a parking ticket from earlier today. It's a Subaru with a Yale decal on the back." As Alexandra made the call, I turned to face Trish and her mom. They stared at each other, expressions of relief and disbelief on their faces. I went up to Trish and pulled her aside. "You might want to start considering your future," I told you. "It's time to come clean about everything, including your relationship with David Parker." Trish nodded and took a long breath. She looked at her mom, who was still clutching one other in startled stillness. "I know this wasn't the way I wanted things to come out," she whispered gently, "but I'm done hiding. I'm going to be true to myself, no matter what happens." Julia Bennett and Olivia Bennett turned to face Trish. Julia Bennett took a deep breath and gave a tentative grin. "I suppose we're proud of you," she murmured, her voice trembling. "It will take some time for us to adjust," Olivia Bennett continued, her face softening, "but we'll be there for you." It wasn't a complete reunion, but it was a beginning. For the first time, I saw a glimmer of approval from her mom, and I hoped it would be enough for Trish to begin living her life on her own terms. Detective Katsumi came immediately after Alexandra's call, and I updated her on the situation. "We're looking for Brandy O'Brien," I informed her. "She's the killer." Nola left a clue in her last moments. She drew a musical symbol, a G clef, to point us toward Brandy. "It looks like Nola found out something about her and paid the price." "Good work, Marston," Detective Katsumi replied, nodding in satisfaction. "Well, take it from here." As the cops left the club, Alexandra approached and wrapped her arms around me. "I'm proud of you, Robbie," she said. "You actually solved the case." "I guess I did," I said, still amazed by how everything ended out. "But I'm not sure what happens next." Alexandra tenderly kissed me. "Maybe we give ourselves a chance. You said this has to stop, but I think maybe it doesn't have to." I stared into her eyes and felt a connection. "We'll see," I said. "But right now, I could really use a drink." She laughed and we walked out of the club together, leaving behind the mystery, danger, and chaos, for now, at least. Alexandra and I left the club and went to a local pub to unwind. It was a tiny, poorly lit room, a far cry from the sparkle and elegance of the Sapphire Lounge. We slipped into a seat, and I ordered a whiskey, while Alexandra chose a glass of red wine. The bartender nodded as he delivered our drinks, and we sat in comfortable stillness for a minute, soaking in the low hum of conversations around us. "You know," Alexandra continued after a sip of wine, "I was half expecting this whole thing to end with you running away in a dramatic chase after Brandy." I laughed. "I think I've had enough drama for one day," I said. "The police can handle it from here. Besides, my head still hurts from that Emmy Award to the skull." Alexandra smiled sympathetically and stretched across the table to grasp my hand. "I'm glad you're okay," she added, her tone serious. "When I saw you in that hospital bed, I was scared. I wasn't sure if you'd wake up." "I wasn't sure either," I acknowledged, sipping my whiskey. "But I guess I'm tougher than I look." She gripped my hand. "You're a lot tougher than you look," she added quietly. We stayed there for a bit, drinking our drinks, and I realized I was enjoying Alexandra's company more than I had in a long time. There was something unique about her tonight, something honest and unreserved. It seemed like we were back in high school, just two people having a moment without the complexities and baggage that had accumulated over the years. "I've been thinking," Alexandra remarked finally, breaking the stillness. "About what you said earlier, about us. You're right, we're from two different worlds. But maybe..." She hesitated, carefully selecting her words. "Maybe we could meet somewhere in the middle," she said. We've always had something, Robbie. It's why we keep finding our way back to each other. I know I've hurt you before, but I'm willing to work on myself, on us, if you are. I gazed into her eyes and saw the sincerity in them. Alexandra was not renowned for her vulnerability, but tonight she was putting everything on the line. Part of me wanted to seize the opportunity to fall headlong back into the wild love we had. But another part of me, the one that had been burnt before, was apprehensive. I want to believe we could make it work, I responded gently. But the truth is, I don't know if I can go through the heartbreak again. You know how much I loved you, and am not sure I could handle losing you for the second time. Alexandra's eyes glistened, and she reached out to stroke my face. You wouldn't lose me, she said softly. Not this time. I'd be all in. Her words triggered something deep inside me. Maybe it was the drink, or the fact that I had just barely avoided being charged with murder, but I felt a rush of optimism. It was the same optimism I had when I heard Alexandra's laughing ringing through the high school corridors all those years ago. I can't make any promises, I said ultimately. But I'm willing to give us one more shot, Alexandra said with a gentle grin on her lips. That is all I am asking for, she said. My phone just buzzed. It was Detective Katsumi. Marston, we've got Brandy in custody, she told us. We found her hiding out at a friend's apartment down. She's confessed to everything. Turns out, Nola found out about some illegal dealings Brandy was involved in, and she threatened to go public. Brandy panicked and killed her. I took a deep breath, relief washed over her. Thanks, Detective, I whispered. I appreciate the update. You did good work, Marston, Katsumi replied. You should think about making this private eye thing a permanent gig. I was giggly. I said, I'll keep that in mind, before hanging up. Well? Alexandra said, her eyes full with wonder. It's over, I said, a weight lifted off my shoulders. Brandy confessed. Nola found out about some shady stuff she was involved in, and Brandy killed her to keep her quiet. Alexandra breathed, relieved. I guess that means you're off the hook, she added, smiling. No more murder charges hanging over your head. That's right, I said, lifting my glass in a faux toast. To freedom. Alexandra also lifted her glass. To second chances, she said, clinking her wine glass against mine whiskey. We spent the remainder of the night chatting, laughing, and reflecting on why we fell in love in the first place. It was like peeling back the layers of time to reveal the essence of what had previously been so meaningful between us. There was still a lot to sort out, but for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful that we could make it work. As we walked out of the pub hand in hand, I couldn't help but reflect on how bizarre life can be. 1 minute, I was on the point of being charged with murder, and the next, I was holding the hand of the one woman I had ever genuinely loved. Maybe I was a fool for trying again with Alexandra, but at the time, I didn't care. After all, sometimes taking a leap of faith was the only way to discover if you could fly. Thank you for watching. Do you think Robbie and Alexandra can make it work, or will they end up heartbroken again? Please let us know in the comments.